The morning sun poured through the towering glass walls of the Avery Global headquarters, scattering golden light across the polished marble floors. It was another ordinary Monday for Michael Avery, a man whose name was whispered with both admiration and fear in the corporate world. At 34, he had built an empire from the ground up, turning his father's small logistics firm into one of the country's most powerful business conglomerates. His world was sharp suits, silent boardrooms, and relentless ambition. Every second of his life was scheduled, measured, and monetized. To everyone else, Michael Avery was success personified. But deep down, behind the cold exterior and carefully chosen words, there was a silence, the kind that didn't come from peace, but from loss. Years ago, before the private jets, the penthouses, and the headlines, there had been laughter in his life. The laughter of his wife Hannah and their little boy Eli, who never made it past his 5th birthday. A car accident had stolen them both one rainy night, and since then Michael had thrown himself into work, chasing achievements that couldn't fill the hollow space left behind. He didn't talk about it. He didn't let anyone close. Success became his armor and solitude his only companion. If you believe in kindness, in forgiveness, and in second chances, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stories like this one remind us that even the coldest hearts can find warmth again. That Monday, Michael arrived at his office lobby as usual, tall, poised, and unreadable. His assistant trailed behind him, updating him on meetings and investor calls. The world outside the glass doors seemed distant, irrelevant. But just as he approached the elevator, something unusual caught his eye. Near the reception desk, a little girl no older than 3 stood clutching an envelope with both hands. Her red velvet dress looked slightly wrinkled, her shoes mismatched, and her big hazel eyes darted nervously around the cavernous space. The receptionist was crouched beside her, speaking gently, but the girl shook her head and looked straight toward Michael as if she had been waiting for him. Her gaze was innocent, steady, the kind that makes even the busiest mind pause. Michael stopped walking. Something about her stillness in that vast, polished lobby struck him in a way he couldn't explain. When the girl saw him, she tightened her grip on the envelope and began to walk toward him with small, determined steps. The echo of her shoes against the marble filled the silence of the lobby. She stopped right in front of him and held the envelope out with trembling hands. "This is for you," she said softly. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but it cut through the noise around them. Michael blinked, confused. "For me?" he murmured. The assistant stepped forward, trying to intervene, but the girl shook her head firmly. "It's only for you." He hesitated, then slowly took the envelope from her tiny fingers. It was light beige, slightly bent at the corners, and on the front, written in uneven crayon letters, were 3 words, "Please read this." Before he could ask anything more, a young woman hurried into the lobby, flustered, breathless. "Oh, thank goodness, I'm so sorry," she said, rushing toward them. "Lila, sweetie, you can't just wander off like that." She looked up at Michael with embarrassed eyes. "I'm so sorry, sir. I work at the community center across the street. We were visiting for a fundraising drop-off and she must have slipped away. She's my niece." Michael gave a polite nod, but his eyes returned to the envelope. "It's all right," he said quietly. "She gave me this." The woman's expression softened. "Then maybe it was meant for you," she said with a small, mysterious smile, and led the girl away. Michael stood frozen, the envelope still in his hand. For reasons he couldn't explain, he didn't open it right away. He took it with him to his office, placing it on the corner of his desk as if afraid that opening it might unleash something he wasn't ready for. The day went on as usual, endless calls, negotiations, emails. Yet every time he glanced at the envelope, something tugged at him. By evening, as the city lights began to flicker outside his office windows, he finally sat back in his chair, exhaled deeply, and opened it. Inside was a single folded piece of paper covered in uneven, childish handwriting, the kind that wobbles and loops too much. At the top, written in bright red crayon, were the words, "Dear Mr. Avery, my mommy says you help people. My daddy is sick and can't work no more. Mommy cries a lot. I saw your building and thought you could help. If you can't, it's okay. I just wanted to ask." My daddy used to say good people never stop caring. I think you are one of them. Thank you. Love, Lila. Michael's breath caught. For a long moment he just stared at the letter. His chest tightened in a way he hadn't felt in years. He remembered another child, his own, scribbling something similar in bright colors, his laughter echoing through their old living room. The letter felt like it had been written by his own son's ghost, sent through time to remind him what he had forgotten. He sat there for a long time, reading it again and again until the words blurred. Then, without overthinking, he picked up the phone and called his assistant. "Find out everything you can about a girl named Lila and her family," he said, his voice unsteady but firm. By the next afternoon he knew everything. Lila's father, David Collins, had been a construction worker who suffered a spinal injury months earlier. He was now confined to a wheelchair, struggling through rehabilitation. Her mother, Grace, worked double shifts at a diner, barely managing to cover rent and medical bills. They lived in a modest apartment not far from the city center. The community center had been trying to raise funds for them, unsuccessfully. That evening, for the first time in years, Michael didn't stay late at the office. He drove himself, without his driver, without his entourage, to the address his assistant had given him. It was a small brick apartment building with peeling paint and a flickering porch light. When Grace opened the door, she looked startled to see a man in a tailored suit standing there, holding a letter written by her daughter. "I believe this belongs to you," Michael said softly, handing her the paper. She flushed, embarrassed. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for her to..." But he shook his head. "No, don't apologize. That letter, it did something I didn't think was possible anymore." He hesitated, his voice breaking slightly. "It reminded me what it means to care." He offered to help, not with charity, but with dignity. A full scholarship for Lila's education, a trust fund for medical expenses, and a job for Grace at one of his company's offices. Grace tried to refuse at first, tears streaming down her face, but Michael insisted. "Your daughter gave me something no one has in years," he said quietly. "Let me give something back." Weeks turned into months. Michael visited often, not as a benefactor, but as a friend. He watched Lila's laughter fill rooms that had once been filled with silence. Slowly, the walls he had built around himself began to crack. Grace noticed the way he softened when Lila showed him her drawings, how his eyes glistened when she called him Mr. Michael. There was a warmth in him that had been buried beneath years of pain. One afternoon, as they sat together in the park, Lila handed him another envelope, this one decorated with stickers and scribbles. "It's a new letter," she said proudly, "because you're my hero now." Michael smiled, but when he opened it, his heart swelled. Inside was a single sentence written in shaky crayon. "Good people never stop caring, and you didn't." For the first time in a decade, Michael felt tears run freely down his face. They weren't tears of grief this time, but of release, the kind that washes away years of numbness. Lila climbed into his lap, patting his cheek with her tiny hands, and said, "It's okay, Mr. Michael. My daddy cries sometimes too." In that moment, surrounded by the laughter of a little girl and the golden glow of a setting sun, Michael realized something profound, that life has a way of bringing light through the smallest hands, the smallest voices, and sometimes all it takes to find yourself again is a child's belief that you're still good. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. And never forget that kindness, even the smallest kind, can change someone's entire world. And before you go, tell me in the comments, what's the one small act of kindness that changed your life?